Whoop. Let's call the town council meeting of September 9th, 2025 to order. Jennifer, will you take roll?
Councilmember Alberish?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Gold?
Here.
Councilmember Wall is absent. Mayor Domkowski?
Here. Councilmember Brown, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Hey. All right, thank you. Before we get going tonight, I'm just going to ask if there are any alterations or needed changes to the agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Jason Ledbetter, Town Manager, and I do have, as per Government Code Section 54954.2, which stipulates items can be added to an agenda after publication if there's a need for immediate action. I am requesting the Town Council make a motion to approve adding the Memorandum of Understanding between the County of San Mateo and the Town of Woodside regarding a credit under Law Enforcement Services Agreement. Adding this item as part of the new business item A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement on behalf of the town of Woodside for law enforcement services between the county of San Mateo and the town of Woodside. This MOU provides a $200,000 credit to the town of Woodside for the contract being considered this evening, as staff had found a $100,000 discrepancy in alterations to last year and this year's contract. And if added, this item would be elaborated on during item A during discussion by myself. So it would take a vote by the council this evening to add this item to the agenda.
Very good, and that would be a unanimous vote because it's a real-time agenda change. So can we get a motion to add this memorandum of understanding for the $200,000 assistance from the county for our sheriff's contract?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Jennifer?
Councilmember Alberish?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Gold?
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski?
Yes. Very good.
So no one's objecting to taking $200,000?
So it turns out that's what happens,
Imagine that.
even in government. Okay, first up tonight, we are honored to have a presentation from the Woodside Fire Protection District and the Sheriff's Office and CAL FIRE. So we certainly welcome our Fire Chief, Cuscieri, Captain Del Porto. We've got Eric and Ryan and Jeremy here too to sort of give us their assessment and perspective on the fire at Edgewood. And let me just start by acknowledging sort of the overwhelming view, which is that the interagency response was excellent. So thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for your teams and all the outstanding work that they do on behalf of the community. And of course, when you have a near crisis, there are learnings and items that we can improve upon. And I know there are a lot of specific questions around communication, and we're going to be covering issues with the SMC alert system during the town manager's report, but obviously happy to get your perspective on that too. So why don't we just start with some broad brushstrokes on the overview of what happened and any thoughts you have for how we can do things better as well on our side. Tom?
Yeah, hi. Good evening. Tom Cuscieri, Fire Chief for the Woodside Fire Protection District. Deputy Chief Zabala here. I have some CAL FIRE representatives, Ryan, Jeremy, and Frank from the Sheriff's Office. Thank you for having us here tonight. Just want to give a brief overview of what occurred on Saturday, August 30th. We call that the Edgewood Fire. I wasn't in town for it. These guys were here. We have a short PowerPoint slide presentation we'd like to kind of run through and kind of give you an overview of what occurred during that fire. So I'll let these guys take it off. If you want to switch to the next slide, that'd be great.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having us. I was not the incident commander on this. Battalion Chief Vince Nannini was the incident commander. He was the first in battalion chief to the scene. He put this PowerPoint presentation together, but I will do my best to walk through some of the slides and we can answer any questions that you may have accordingly. So obviously the fire that we had, fourth alarm fire, Dispatch time was 16:53. It came in as a grass fire. Essentially, the initial alarm was for a vehicle fire northbound 280, just north of Farm Hill. What happened is that a vehicle pulled over to the side of the road, ignited. There was a little bit of wind. He pulled over close to the grass and it caught the side of the freeway on fire running up the hill towards Kenyatta College, as I'm sure you have all seen the burn scar. So the second alarm was called at about 1700. Upon arrival, that was sent to Kenyatta College up to the courtyard building overlooking. They were sent there primarily for structure protection because that was at the time the biggest threat. They made a great stop on that. They were fortunate to have the big parking lot there. That was a large fire break. They were able to get their apparatus in there with no problem and get hose lines on the ground relatively quickly. So that was good for us. Upon arrival, the northbound 280, the Farm Hill on-ramp, 3/4 of an acre, moderate rate of spread, slope-driven fired, as well as some wind. The wind played a factor for us. It was pushing in a southeast direction initially, causing it to run up and south on the freeway there. Subsequently, a third alarm was called about 1713. The fire crested kind of the top of the hill there, and some strong gusts of wind accompanied by some eucalyptus exposure gave us a little bit of an issue where we had some spotting out to the west side of the freeway. It initially started into the center divide and then went to the lower portion of Farm Hill and eventually extending over towards the Mission Trail area. The third alarm assignment was Division N, NORA. It went under, like I said, Farm Hill and the 280 on-ramp there. And subsequently, right after that, because that was kind of the escalation portion of it, the fourth alarm was called at 1719 and sent directly to Mission Trail and Kenyatta Road. They were designated Division X for structure protection and initial intel on the ground. Chief West here will give a little bit more of an update on that when he comes to speak. He was first to that area and could give a little bit more of an idea of what was going on there. You can see, obviously, the temperatures were warm, relative humidity was around 22%, and the winds started out a little slow, about 2 to 3 miles per hour, and then increased during the incident. So we can go to the next slide, please. So key incident details, just a few of them. Upon the arrival of Battalion 11, a unified command was established. Unified command is when multiple agencies come together, obviously, in one place to help run the incident. So that was established. Incident commander contacted CHP and the sheriff's deputies to close the freeway, obviously in both directions. At approximately 1800, forward progress of the fire had been stopped. So this, as you can see from this, it was a quick escalation of alarms and a little bit of the fire progression, and then quick de-escalation and a good stop, in part to tremendous resource allocation from CAL FIRE helping us with aircraft, and Chief West will go into that a little bit more, but we had significant aircraft presence there that was able to give us a hand. So no structures were damaged, minimal property loss just to a fence post and us cutting some fence for access. At the time, it was deemed that there was no need to evacuate that surrounding neighborhood. Forward progress had been stopped quickly. The area of initial ignition on 280 there had no structures threatened at that time, and there was no need for evacuation up on the Farm Hill side. As I said, it escalated a little quickly and then de-escalated very quickly. Fire watch was established and remained throughout the night and the next day. Crews doing mop-up, ensuring that there was no rekindles of any areas and going through and checking the fire lines. We had a few little, we call them, smoking areas, smokers, hot spots but no secondary ignitions found on that. So go to the next one. And then I will step out of the way here for a moment and have Deputy Chief Ryan West talk about the CAL FIRE response.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thanks for having me. This slide presentation was created to present to the County Board of Supervisors this morning. So after I finish there, we'll go into a section that was presented by DEM's Department of Emergency Management. So I don't think it'd be appropriate to continue with this presentation after me. Again, my name is Ryan West. I'm the Deputy Chief for CAL FIRE San Mateo Santa Cruz Unit, and I oversee all of the operations within San Mateo County. Next slide, please. Quick definition of mutual threat zone. It's a geographic area be located between 2 or more jurisdictions in which those agencies would respond, providing automatic aid during initial attack. This incident occurred within the mutual threat zone that was located within Woodside Fire Protection District's local response area. Due to the threat of the state responsibility area, or the SRA, and the location within the MTZ, we launched a full CAL FIRE wildland response. CAL FIRE, upon arriving at scene, entered into unified command with Woodside Fire Protection District and ultimately played a support role once we determined it was within the Woodside District and stayed within the boundaries of the district. Next slide, please. Just a brief rundown on the state resources that were brought to this incident through our mutual threat zone agreements. We had 2 chief officers, both from San Mateo County. We had 1 air attack plane that serves as an air tactical aircraft. They're like the traffic controller in the sky. We brought in 2 air tankers. Those are S2T air tankers that have 1,200 gallons of retardant. 2 helicopters, our new CAL FIRE Firehawk platform. Those are capable of carrying 1,000 gallons of water and a firefighting hand crew of up to 9 personnel. We had 9 Type 3 wildland fire engines, and those fire engines came from San Mateo County, Santa Cruz County, and a couple from Santa Clara County. We had 2 hand crews that responded to the scene, and they were from the Glenwood Fire Center located in San Mateo County, and we brought in 1 bulldozer from Santa Clara County. That'll actually be the end of the presentation for as far as the CAL FIRE response. A quick note: the benefits of the aircraft. You know, we bring in the aircraft, and the true benefit of having that aircraft is they're able to drop water or retardant and in an effort to cool the fire or slow its progress to allow ground resources the ability to get in there and effectively put the fire out. Any questions from?
It's a
any
fantastic
additional- yeah.
response. Questions from council?
I have a question about the origin of the fire. So there was a, by the way, thank you. It was really pretty amazing. I live very close to that, looking over kind of Barclay Field and that area. And I was at the supermarket at Woodside Plaza. At almost exactly the time the fire was called in, I was leaving and driving up the hill up Massachusetts and kind of up Woodside Drive there. And I could see the first smoke coming up and this white smoke coming up. And I turned to my wife and I said, that looks like it's our house. I mean, it was like right where our house would be. And she said, drive faster. And so I kind of, Frank, I drove a little fast. Going up the hill there and got home. And as I got closer, as I was going down Ridgeway, I actually had notified on the WhatsApp program for Woodside Hills that there's smoke behind Ridgeway Road and the freeway, although I couldn't see where it was. And then when I got home, I could see it was over by Kenyatta College, and the wind seemed to be going sort of away from us toward the Glens, which was fortunate for us, not so fortunate for Lanning Drive. But anyway, as I got there, I saw the first airplane circling. I guess that may have been the attack plane. I'm not sure which was there first, but then there were suddenly 2 planes I saw going around and then helicopters. The response was overwhelming. I mean, you guys hit it fast and you hit it hard, and it felt good that I knew we were in good hands, and I appreciate that. Anyway, I did want to tell that before I got to my question. Sorry. My question is the origin of the fire. There seemed to be some confusion. There was a car on fire before it pulled over, or did it pull over and sort of set fire to the high grass, which happens a lot, I know.
Yeah, reports from Fire Marshal Kim Giuliacci was she interviewed the owner of the vehicle who said his car was smoking as he was driving down the freeway. He was able to pull over to the side of the road. Once he pulled over, the car started on fire. He panicked, called 911, had a problem getting out of his vehicle, eventually got out, ran away from it. And by the time he ran out, it had started to catch the engine compartment on fire in the nearby grass. And then it just took off up the hill because of the steepness of that hill. It took off pretty quick. But that's how
So
it's-
is that there's a big black spot at the far northern end?
Yes.
It's as far north as you can get on the breakdown lane.
right in the asphalt and the shoulder.
Still there.
That's-
It's going to
that's
be
right
there
where-
for a while. I
That's where
see.
the car was, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought so. So I noticed, and we saw this, there was unfortunately an accident for the California Highway Patrol yesterday on 280 and that stopped traffic. But about a month ago, there was a bad spill and that stopped the 280 as well. And one of the things, I got caught in it. I think that Yaz got caught in yesterday's with the California Highway Patrol. Thank goodness he's okay. But I bring this up because we see cars pulling off into the high grass all the time. I mean, especially when traffic is backed up. I guess they were pulling over because maybe they were low on gas, or they were just, they'd rather just pull over and take a nap than wait in traffic. And I actually said to my wife said this a lot tonight, didn't she? I said to her that that's how you set fire to, I mean, we see this all the time, is that people pull in the high grass, their mufflers are really, and tailpipes are really hot. They set fire to the high grass and it goes up the hillside. Is there anything from the state that we could do to sort of like at least put warning signs up, especially, to like, don't pull into the high grass with your hot muffler. You're going to set our places on fire. Beyond your scope?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are already some messaging points that are put out for general fire safety, but I think where, to truly answer your question, gets a little complicated is whose jurisdiction, who owns
yeah.
the property.
Ed, state,
Can
you know.
can you put signs on there? Whose responsibility would that be? That's where it gets really complicated. But just having the ability to have generalized fire safety messaging and maybe picking topics like that to educate folks through our social media platforms would be appropriate.
All right, good idea. Maybe I'll mention it to our state officials and then nothing will happen.
Well, on that point, so we have been elevating through the political channels, and then Jason has been elevating through professional staff to Caltrans around vegetation removal. Is there anything, I mean, I imagine if CAL FIRE writes a memorandum that says, this brush is extraordinarily dangerous, you're taking on significant liability, I'm just wondering if there are advocacy channels that you all have that could also be brought to bear in some way, in terms of, you said there are talking points, but maybe something more, focused in that regard, really calling out that their failure here on vegetation removal is a real issue. And we have a car fire every year almost on the 280.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand the points you're bringing up, and it's hard when we are dealing with Caltrans. We can work with them. We do have relationships with Caltrans, and we can, as concerns are being brought up, we can convey those concerns from our professional capacity as well as maybe members of the public conveying that to them. Again, I'll revert back to like who has responsibility and jurisdiction. So like that entire section where that fire was, that was all Woodside Fire, but then the highway is Caltrans property. So it just gets a little convoluted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Unified command. I love that. I was curious what actually happens. How does that work? Who's in charge? We might have sheriff's department that's looking for evacuation. You guys might say all clear. CAL FIRE's in. I mean, is there who runs unified command?
Yeah,
Who's
so
the
absolutely.
person we go to?
So the incident commander is typically the first chief officer on scene. So the incident commander for this incident was Battalion Chief Vincent Anini. What he does is he gets the other agencies together, whoever their representative is at that time, typically a higher ranking officer, and they start to formulate the plan and what they need to do. And then they assist with communications to those respective groups. What we try to do obviously with law enforcement is have them there so we can relay any information that we need to in terms of evacuations, in terms of closures, in terms of anything else that we would need them from. CAL FIRE does a tremendous job with running the air ops and doing all of that, the air to ground. So, and state resources and running the state resources. So there is typically one incident commander. In this case, it was our battalion chief, Vincent Anini, and then he was unified with the other agencies there.
Got it. Quick follow-up. Because we have a decentralized government effectively in Woodside, where there's the administrative government, you guys have the fire protection district, the sheriffs have the policing. Is there a formal protocol or procedure around proactive information going out to the town manager, or how does it work? Where do we come in to sort of being informed as to
Absolutely.
what's going on?
Yeah, that would be, in terms of a policy, no. However, it's definitely one of the priorities for the incident commander to either delegate to somebody or make those notifications himself. In this instance, Chief Kashari had been in contact and doing that. He wasn't at the scene, however, he was making calls and relaying information that was being relayed to him. And in terms of alerts, there's multiple agencies have the ability to do those, as well as DEM, who is a primary resource for that as well.
Okay. Maybe one for you, Frank. We got, somebody called in and said when Lanning and Mission Trail were starting to be evacuated, there seemed to be heavy congestion of traffic on Kenyatta. I don't know if that was your experience or not. That's just what we heard from some citizens. What happens in that situation? Are you able to bring in more resources for traffic control, or was that, I mean,
Yeah,
how
we
does that
actually-
work?
We actually had, I think, almost 30 sheriff's units there.
30 units.
So it was actually, for us, it worked out really well because we had the Millbrae Art and Wine Festival. We had the Kings Mountain Festival. Everybody was getting off duty from there, driving southbound on 280. So we just had an influx of sheriff's deputies that showed up that wanted to help. But yeah, something like that, we can run traffic breaks on Kenyatta Road to make sure we can get people, out of the area down to 101 or down Woodside Road. So.
That's great. That's, again, the response was, we are forever grateful. Thank you all. Are we still planning on a townwide evacuation series of drills on, in 2026? Is that still in
Yeah,
the making?
yeah, Fire Marshal Giuliacci and the fire district will be working on that to
Okay.
get that out
Didn't
there.
mean to cut you off, Councilmember.
A quick question for Captain. Was that your video? The
Yeah,
I thought so.
it's famous now.
It's famous. It
Yeah.
was the best video. By the way, I stole it. I posted it on my Facebook page and everybody thought, wow, you're like a great photographer. I mean, this was like, it was one of the most dramatic. Somebody told me I should sell it to a news media outlet and get
Well,
paid
it's
for it.
funny.
But it was your stuff. It was fantastic. You were
Y-
great during the.
Yeah, I was actually in the Woodside, Woodside Plaza also about to go out to dinner. And then I got the call from one of my sergeants that was heading to the call. So I decided to go home and change and then responded to the scene. But it's the same thing. When we pulled in, I looked up the hill and I saw the smoke.
Yep.
So
Anyway,
yeah.
thanks for
absolutely.
the whole department. You guys did great. Appreciate it.
One other quick question for me anyway, just, we're going to talk SMC alerts later. Obviously, that's not our purview, but we want to make sure it's working as best as it possibly can because it didn't quite work the way it was supposed to. What role is the town of Woodside itself supposed to play with SMC alerts? Would it be a good thing if we were helping? Would it actually be a bad thing because we are not on the front line? I mean, just for clearing up ambiguity, do you have any thoughts on what we should be doing to try to get information out or not, or we should be staying out of the way?
Yeah, I think it's up to us to help get that messaging out. And I think it's up to us also to correspond with you as the town to make sure we're going to send the same messaging out so that, all of us as stakeholders are on the same page and we get the same messaging out. Like I said, when this happened, it's, I get the information. I try to report to the town managers, hey, we have this going on. If you want to send something out via your channels, we're also going to send it out via our channels. For us, we have like Selena Brown, she goes and she does the forums, the IO groups, and we try to get messaging out as fast as we can. It might be best for us to collaboratively work better to get that messaging out, just so that we're all getting the same message out. That's the biggest thing, the takeaway I want to present to this is the same messaging.
I know there's some training coming up too on the system for us as well. One thing, here's one last question. Sorry, I lied. There was one last question. In terms of punctuation on the sentence on an event like this, one of the things that people didn't know for a long time is that you had suppressed the fire. It was over. And people were still quite a bit in a panic and the phone is blowing up, there was no final message that said fire contained. Is that normal, or would it be possible? I think it would put a lot of people at ease if there was a final message that said contained, and to your point, next steps, we're going to be suppressing fire overnight and chopping down some trees and we'll be on site, and something to just take the temperature down, I guess,
Yeah.
not to use a pun, but
I agree. Yeah, that final messaging should go out. And I think, for us, we have so many platforms that we have available too, because I know the Watch Duty app was also updating progress of the fire, and that was capturing a lot of the stuff, but not everybody uses that. So SMC Alert, we're trying to obviously increase our users to get more people signed up for that. if we have something that where we feel that it's gonna need to be evacuated 100%, we're gonna go to the WE alerts, so the mandatory push outs that goes to everybody. That's not an opt-out, it's it's a mandatory thing, that messaging system where people will get those messages.
Any other questions from council? We are going to open up public comment on this because it's very rare for us to have this team of public safety experts in the room. And if you would just entertain us for just a few minutes here with, I think people would appreciate to hear directly from you all versus any interpretation through us. So if there are any questions specifically on the fire from the public that you would like to ask now, floor is open. And we have a couple of, I'm going to go right to the Zoom room. So San, we'll bring you in. And there you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, to echo, just huge thanks to everybody. The response was amazing. So yeah, the town is extremely grateful. I just want to pass on one tidbit. I live on Kenyatta. After 280 got closed, I think that traffic backup that the mayor referenced was actually people, I think, cutting through. I have no data on this. I didn't ask anybody, but the traffic picked up pretty dramatically and Kenyatta slowed down a lot. So for the future, something to consider is if 280 gets closed, we may want to try to close Kenyatta as well in whatever fashion is feasible. I'm not saying that's what you have to do, but I think people who are on 280 were using it as a cut through. And I can imagine we all agree that if there's a fire in Woodside, we don't want people on 280 using our surface streets as cut through. So just a tidbit of information. Again, thank you folks so much. That was absolutely spectacular and we're all eternally grateful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, San. We'll go to you, Kim. Ms. Hanson.
Hi, thank you. Appreciate that y'all have prioritized this. I think the communication is still a little undetermined, and I have some questions about that. The fire personnel who just spoke had said that information would be pushed out through the mandatory channels, and it's unclear to me what channel that is, because San Mateo County Alerts did not send out any type of alert to the surrounding neighborhoods. I think someone had referenced that the Fire Protection District puts information out to forums and IO groups, but I don't believe that there is such a communication channel that's utilized in Woodside. These are mostly Portola Valley channels. So we'd really love to find some way that Woodside could be included. And we were watching the smoke from our houses here, and Watch Duty was also was remiss in the alerts that would have helped us feel a little bit less panic stricken. But we really appreciate everything that you did and for taking the time to speak with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. One of the things I learned through this is that there's actually higher forms of communication like iPause and things like that you would actually use in a mass evacuation situation. Can you talk a little bit about that Amber Alert kind of program that you actually what would actually happen if we were in a broad-based?
What we're talking about is it's opt-in versus opt-outs. And so the SMC Alert is an opt-in program where you have to go on there, log in, make an account, put what you'd like to be alerted on and so forth. The iPause and the WIA alerts are mandatory. They go out over all cell carriers, no matter where you're at. You can actually geolocate an area to send out to a geographic area for notifications for people who aren't residents here and are visiting or working, and they'll get it as well. So if there is a significant event where immediate evacuations need to be done and we need to make sure that everybody knows about that, that's what he was referencing, the chief was referencing, is that those are the platforms that we're going to use. The SMC alerts obviously are very helpful and very useful, and we like to utilize those as well, and sending those out. But that sometimes can be information that is not as pressing and or time sensitive. So we can definitely look at ways to, if we need to, we can do that through the DEM, Department of Emergency Management, through our dispatch, and then we can follow up secondarily with more SMC alerts and or social media posting to try to fill that gap.
Got it. So, but the iPause literally is like everybody's phone rings.
So
like an
yes, so
Amber
absolutely. It doesn't
Alert.
matter what the carrier is that
yeah.
you use. It will send the notification to
Right.
you and you'll get that and it gives you a significant alert, tells you what's going on, and that's when that messaging will take place.
Thank you. Any other questions while we have our leadership team here?
Mr. Mayor, if I can just make a comment, I just wanted to make sure that the community knew and that everybody in the room knew that ultimately the town has a great relationship with the Fire Protection District, and Tom was immediately on the phone with me when the fire broke out, and Frank was with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office as well. So very thankful for the level of communication that they currently have with the staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Well, I think with that, on behalf of the entire town of Woodside, well, David, did you want to jump up? Okay. Mr. Middleton,
Thank you. I do have a question.
can you speak a little, there you go.
Thank you for responding. I do have a question. You guys use a lot of acronyms like mutual, MTZ and those things. It's unclear to me what sections of the town have those overlays and which sections don't, i.e. if you're down on Portola Road, would a response include CAL FIRE, et cetera? I was wondering if there was a published map somewhere.
The fire map, but that's a great, I had the same, I mean, I wish the whole town was an SRA, frankly.
Yeah.
But
Well, we are one big mutual threat zone here, so
Okay.
we do get assistance from CAL FIRE and at almost any incident we have in our district, which is great. And there are maps out there. You can toggle on, like, for instance, Watch Duty has a map layering system on it where I think you could see some of the different layers of what's SRA, state response area versus local response area and whatnot. But those maps are available if you look online and Google search them too.
Okay. Yeah, mutual threat zone was a new one. I didn't know that was, that's great. So. Okay, I think with that, again, couldn't be more thankful. What an amazing response. Glad location and conditions were helpful, but so was an absolute, just bringing every resource possible, 30 units of sheriff's cars and that inventory list. I couldn't help but take a picture. It was super impressive. So thank you for being here tonight, and thanks for sharing your insights. And we really appreciate everything you do and the wonderful partnership you have with the town. So thank you. I hope we don't have to see you again, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Right, we are moving on to public comment. So persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the posted agenda are invited to do so now. Please note, however, the council cannot undertake extended discussions or act on non-agendized items. They can be referred to staff and they can be agendized at another time. Communication period is typically limited to 5 people, 3 minutes each, but it's Woodside and we want to hear what's on your mind. So, so I think with that, we will open public comment and we'll just go right to the Zoom room for Ms. New.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking my comment. I would like to speak on concerns that many residents of those of us who live up here near Alice's Restaurant, near the Four Corners area, have on traffic hazards on these roads. This has been particularly troublesome during the summer. A lot of racing at all hours of the day takes place. You know, we sleep with our windows open, so we can hear engines late at night, 9, 10, 11 p.m. and, you know, bright and early at, 7 o'clock in the morning. So it goes on quite, pretty consistently throughout the day, worse on weekends. I mean, there are some things that I have witnessed that are really concerning, and I know that the sheriff's office has stepped up patrols, but, I've just last weekend, we were driving southbound on Highway 35, about half a mile south of Alice's, and there was a line of these souped up Acura race cars, and these guys were busy affixing cameras to document their cool new Instagram video stunts. And that was their plan for the day. They were going to be racing on the roads up here. There's been near misses. Oftentimes it's because there are drivers who are unfamiliar with the intersection and multiple types of vehicles. You're talking about everything from logging trucks to dump trucks to cars, bicycles, motorcycles, and pedestrians. And it's just a really challenging area. There's poor signage, the flashing lights that are supposed to alert drivers to slowing down their speed, for example, when you're heading northbound on 35 coming down the hill into Four Corners, those lights are out. So there's no flashing lights. So the signage is poor. There's very poor lighting, overhead lighting, particularly under the dark redwoods. The other day, I was following two cyclists northbound on 35 towards Four Corners, and they indeed slowed to what the indicated speed is, which is 35 miles per hour heading into that intersection. There's no other speed limit sign or suggestion indicating that they should slow down to, in my opinion, a more reasonable speed like 20 miles per hour. There's been some advocacy in the area trying to ask for a four-way stop sign instead of a two-way. Well, it's more than two ways, but a two-way stop sign. And I think that that would help a lot. And lastly, I'll leave it at this. Kind of indicative of this whole thing, there was a guardrail on Highway 84, the hairpin turn. It's a very sharp turn on 84 that was crashed into 4 weeks ago. And before Caltrans had the opportunity to fix it, a second accident happened so badly that the car indented into the embankment and debris was flown 20 to 30 feet in the air and onto the ground. That is a fire hazard. A car just caught on fire on 280. What's preventing a little spark and a little gasoline on the ground from sparking a fire on 84? Thank you.
Thank you. So Ms. New, obviously the intersection, as we all know, of 84 and 35 are two state highways, so we don't have direct jurisdiction, but we are in an advocacy role. We have reached out to Supervisor Mueller. He is working with State Senator Becker and Assemblymember Berman to advocate to Caltrans around a four-way stop, around signage, around rumblers, around yellow flashing lights, at least, if you will, a quick fix, not a long-term fix, but at least doing something. I know the captain is still with us. Thank you. And you all ran enforcement over the weekend with 55 citations on speeding and stop sign violations. And Yaz, you last year, when there was a bicycle accident, worked with Caltrans around, and they were working on some type of design initiative, right? Can you maybe fill us in on what happened with that? That was a whole year ago, you know?
Absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We met with Caltrans Office of Traffic Safety actually closer to a year and a half ago. And we went up there, we had a site visit, and we had, actually when we were up there, a couple of the sheriff's deputies were there. So they also talked to and received feedbacks from the sheriff's deputies. The plan was for doing a geometric realignment of that junction. And basically, I've been contacting them really every few months to get a status. I'll just leave it as the latest information that I received literally just before this meeting from Caltrans was that they are moving forward with these proposed improvements at that junction. Some of it is installation of the always stop at the intersection, enhancements to existing pavement striping and markings, as well as new markings, upgrades and additional traffic warning signs to provide clear advance notice to motorists, and installation of a new pedestrian crossing at State Route 35, just north of the intersection to improve accessibility. The timeline that they've given is they're anticipating to start construction in 2026.
That's more than I thought. Okay, that's good. Captain, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I mean, I know, and Jason's been working with the county administrator too on these issues, but your enforcement effort on Sunday was spectacular. I know it's grant funded. I don't know how persistent we can be, but it would be wonderful to drive the point home for the next, you know, between now and the end of the year on the weekends. But I don't know how this works or what can we do, if anything, from an enforcement point of view, given there are a lot of behavioral issues happening.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that was said about putting in the four-way stop sign. Another good idea I heard was limiting the parking, having no parking signs on the east side of 35, just I guess it'd be north of 84. because there's a blind spot there that a lot of people complain about. And I don't want you to think that we just went out there and started doing traffic enforcement or these details after the collision. But we have stepped up since I've been in headquarters. We have really stepped up our enforcement up there. I'm in constant communication with the CHP captain. He has 2 units that are dedicated to that area that, you know, that do periodic traffic enforcement up there. I think about 2 years ago, the coast side actually added a unit. We call it our David 90 unit, which is assigned to Skyline Boulevard. So from 92 south to the county line. And he's there from noon to midnight. So he's assigned to that area. We have a very small portion of Skyline, as you know, in Woodside. Everything else belongs to the coast side as far as our beat structure goes. But that's why the coast put that unit up there. And I know our motors are up there constantly. We're gonna, you know, if we need to step up more enforcement, we will. So, but I think that the 4-way stop sign would be a huge improvement.
Great. Well, we appreciate that. We have a bit of a limited budget. We're going to talk about that later tonight. So anything that the county itself can also do, lean in would be very helpful for sure. But thank you for all you're doing up there. And that's interesting on the coastal unit assignment. It's news too to me. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, could I make a comment just to folks in the room? So this is public communications. I'm glad we're talking about it, but this topic's going to come up during the town manager's report, as I understand it as well.
Yeah, ultimately, I'm gonna make reference to the cycling accident and I think the SMC alerting system.
Yes, okay, because I know there's people who want to talk about it and I just want them to have the opportunity to speak as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? Mr. Middleman?
Good evening, Mr. Middleman, 280 Grandview. I'll save my comments on that topic for the town manager's report. The second topic I had is an old friend, PG&E. Over the past 2 months, the same 314 households around Skyliner Center have experienced 5 distinct power outages. Most of these outages have occurred on clear, sunny, and calm days. During at least one of these outages, cell service also went offline. That would preclude residents from receiving SMC alerts and IPAWS alerts in the case of an emergency. We are used to power outages on the Hill during inclement weather in the winter. We don't bat an eye when rare snow is on the ground and we run a generator. However, this is September. Many on the Hill have medical equipment at home or medicines that need refrigeration. If PG&E can't keep the power on a sunny fall day, will this winter be the same or if not worse than 2023? Just today, most of Redwood City experienced a multi-hour power outage, affecting Woodside Plaza, Costco, and most of the lights on Woodside Road. Please demand answers from our utility company and ask for an investigation and a transparent public report into the state of the power grid of District 5 so that those who live there can make an educated decision on how to prepare for the winter. Thirdly or secondly, I have been looking into the affordable housing needs of those who work in Woodside. During that research, I decided to look at the town's salary schedule through the lens of the 2025 Housing and Urban Development income limits. I was saddened by what I found. There are 112 different possibilities for a town staff member to be the single earner of a household of a size from 1 to 4. Considering the median pay for each position, 75% of those possibilities are below the median income for the county. 23% fall in either the extremely low or acutely low category. Only 4 of our staff positions fall at or above the median income for the county for a family of 4. Please consider revising the salary schedule early to ensure that, at the very least, we can pay our staff above the poverty line for the county. We should strive to do better to care for those who care for our town. I'll be back for the other topic.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Middleman. Obviously on PG&E, you know, just, we've dealt with this before. They have zero obligation, as you know, to the town of Woodside. They will shut off power, usually on a windy day, fire prevention for limiting liability and whatnot. It sounds like that was not the case. In the recent experience, we do have a government affairs officer that we can elevate to a PG&E, but, you know, the truth is they're regulated by CPUC, right? The California Public Utilities Commission, and complaints, much like you just articulated around self-service and emergency service and medical equipment, I would just also recommend that that's the place for those letters to go, because my own experience is I can probably tell you how PG&E is going to respond to that complaint. But their regulator is their regulator, so that's the only advice I have on that. And we will certainly be looking at, on an annual basis, as we always do, on staff salary schedules coming in January. Thank you for your advocacy on behalf of the staff. All right, any other questions? If not, we're going to close public comment. All right, we will move on to the town manager report. So off to you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Jason Ledbetter, the town manager. So over the August break, I met with a number of folks. Met with the Portola Valley town manager, the county administrator, Redwood City manager, the South San Francisco city manager, different meetings, and ultimately the topics of conversation at these different meetings revolved around the sheriff's contract, local politics, and just the trends of the region. Much work getting done preparing for the focus within the Public Works Department over the 3 major projects that we have that are being designed, and then we should be breaking ground next year on, which is the Old La Honda Road Stormwater Project, and then the 2 projects on Hillside Drive. The CAC, the Community Advisory Committee for the Town Center Area Plan, had its first meeting on 8/26 here in this room. We will have pop-up events at the, we'll have a pop-up event this Saturday at the Hub from 12 to 2 p.m. We'll have another pop-up that will take place at Emily Joubert on Thursday, September 25th from 3 to 5 in the parking lot right in front of that location. And then we will also be attending the Day of the Horse event on Sunday, October 12th from 10:30 to 12:30 with another pop-up where we will have a survey and we will be disseminating information about the town center area plan and then taking that information in and then presenting it at the next CAC meeting. On Sunday the 7th, this last Sunday, I attended the Taste of Woodside, and then I also attended a local HOA neighborhood gathering just to be available to the public if there were questions about town operations. We are working with the Woodside Fire Protection District to bring a proposed contract for increased vegetation maintenance along the right-of-way and town-owned properties. This contract is currently being reviewed by the Woodside Fire Protection District legal team, and once approved there, we will have this in front of council for consideration. On Tuesday, September 3rd, Melissa attended the e-bike safety meeting at Woodside Elementary School that was kind of started on some way in theory here in this space, and I think the captain from the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, Frank Del Porto, had worked with the school to organize this event. It was led by Steve Frank, the superintendent, who gave presentations to parents and a few students in attendance, along with the representatives from the Sheriff's Office and CHP. A total of 6 parents and 3 students were in attendance. Topics of discussion included a review on the classes of e-bikes and e-scooters and the rules for riding them, how there is no bike lane on the Woodside, on the side of the Woodside Road where the school is, and kids are riding on the path instead. Possibly changing the speed limit to 15 during school hours. Signage will be installed at the school that e-bikes, e-scooters are not to be ridden on campus at any time. A suggestion of a PTA-sponsored bike safety course, e-bike permit being issued to a park, to park an e-bike on campus, and that the school would be talking to the students during lineup on September 4th. Melissa did advise Superintendent Frank that the town was creating an e-bike, e-scooter webpage for education, and we would continue to explore these issues with the school. And then I have 2 other items that I actually need to defer on, quite frankly. And so the town experienced obviously 2 very serious events. We heard about both of them already over Labor Day weekend. Obviously, the fire that was discussed by the fire chief and sheriff's office, as well as the cycling death near Alice's. And so I'm going to defer over to Yaz, but I'm not sure if you have any more information to share on the cycling incident. But if there's any other clarification that I can provide. And then ultimately, through the incident of the Edgewood 280 fire, there was concern over the SMC alerting system, and we held a meeting with the fire chief and the sheriff captain that are here tonight, discussed those issues. I met with the DEM executive director at the county, who had kind of told me his opinion about what had transpired. And then ultimately, I was able to lean on council or Vice Mayor Gold here to actually get to the bottom of what we think is what the reality of what happened. And I'd like to defer at this time to you so that you can elaborate on that.
Okay, thank you. So there was and in fact, Ms. Hanson mentioned this she spoke a bit earlier about the failure to get certain SMC alerts. So just a brief review. The SMC alert system, as you heard earlier, is an opt-in system. We've all been encouraged to sign up for it, and I have. And then, they are the gospel. So when you get an alert on your phone from SMC Alert, that's from the county that says there's a serious problem, there's a fire, there's an accident, something's closed, something's, there's an issue, avoid a certain area. And that didn't happen during the fire, the Edgewood fire, as we called it. That we talked about a bit earlier, at least not to everybody. And some people received it and some didn't. And there was some conflicting information. I'm the town's representative on the Department of Emergency Management, DEM, the county's DEM. We have an Emergency Services Council, which has a representative from every city on it. And actually, coincidentally, we meet every other month, and it's meeting next Thursday, a week from the day after tomorrow. And this was a big issue. I contacted the director, Shruti Dipodikar, and we talked about this issue. Ryan Reynolds, who's the operations there, and they knew that this was a problem. So I think it's important for people to know, to have a little bit of background on this. The failure was that the two SMC alerts, one came from the sheriff's office and one came from fire. They weren't aligned, they weren't coordinated, and the folks putting out the messages didn't check the right boxes. And part of the problem is there's 500 senders on the system. This may be more information than you want. But there's 500 people in the county who are authorized to access and use the SMC alert system independently. I'll spare you the details on the relative efficacy of their credentials and their use of the system, but let's just say that not all of them are as experienced as they should be. That changes Thursday at this meeting, because it's number one on the agenda to discuss this, and there's going to be a complete revamping of the system, at least the training. So the number of users is going to be reduced. The credentials are going to be increased, and the system, which is never exercised, it's just exercised as people want to, that is testing the system, now we'll have either a monthly or a bi-monthly testing. So people's credentials are current. They know how to do it. They know how to write an alert, and they know who to, which neighborhoods to target and check. So that's being done. So the corrective actions are sheriff's office training, mandatory instructions on new alert templates to ensure messages are accurate, geo-targeted, and delivered to the full subscriber database. There's going to be new step-to-step guidelines and training videos. Those are actually already done. They were actually done between the event and today, so that they'll be ready. We can view them actually next week. Stronger collaboration, coordinating fire and law enforcement, so alerts are aligned. And there's going to be a training session on September 18th, which is the day after our meeting, the SMC DEM meeting, which will be led by Dr. Sutton, who is the head of the alert system, to go through these improvements. But I just wanted to assure folks that number one, the issue was recognized, and the SMC alert system is one of the most important systems we have in the county, because without it, we can't really do evacuations. So we recognize how critical this is, maybe the most critical system that we have to alert citizens, and that it's the gospel. When you hear from them, it means something. So they recognized that there was a shortcoming and it's being addressed. The second thing I wanted to mention, which came up already, was the FEMA's IPAWS system, IPAWS, Integrated Protection and Warning Alert System or something like that. I think I'm probably messed that up a little bit. But anyway, that's the mandatory system that just blasts out on your phone automatically. That is always available. So if you didn't get the message, and I didn't, so it's sort of, you know, concerning to me, to say the least, and concerning to a lot of our residents and citizens. They did assure me that they were prepared. And by the way, DEM had 2 people on site. One of them was apparently on the highway, one was at Kenyatta College. They independently can send out messages, and they were certainly in touch with the fire officials. And when the fire was under control, they knew that they didn't need to send out any evacuation orders. But had they had to, they could have used the IPAWS system. They could have gotten into the federal system and issued that. There's actually one more system, I think, higher than that, but we didn't get into that. It's not necessary to do so. But they assured us that there were systems in place, and not the least of which was sheriff's deputies were on site in the Glens, ready to go door to door if they had to. And as I think Hassan mentioned before, maintain traffic control. Hassan brought up a really good point, I thought. So I just wanted to assure folks that it's getting the highest attention at the county level. It's a very big issue. We are on it. We want to make sure that the system, that the people who access it know what they're doing, that it's coordinated, and that it's taken care of appropriately. And I will certainly report back to the council after our meeting next week of the DEM Emergency Services Council, and I'll return get the information to the council to be able to do that. More than you wanted to hear.
Wanted to hear. It was great to hear. Back to you, Jason, or are we,
That concludes my piece.
okay? Any questions for the town manager from council?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
I do, because I know that there's some folks who want to speak about it. So I did want to, I tend to talk a lot. I'm a recovering politician, sorry. The one, I wanted to thank the town attorney, staff, the town manager, and Good Cities for the TCAP launch, which was in this room. I think there's 16 members on the committee. They were really engaged. They came up with great suggestions. The meeting was really well run. I did not have high expectations for it, sorry. Knocked me out of the park. They were really good, really engaged. I think they came up with some fantastic ideas. And I think we've got the right team in there, and I'm very enthusiastic and pretty psyched to hear what they have to say. They had some terrific comments, and it could not be a better group. I was very impressed. So thanks for coordinating all that. I did want to talk about the Four Corners issue, traffic on Skyline, and kind of what's going on there. If for no other reason, then I can let people from the public talk about it. But as the mayor said earlier, there was very strict traffic enforcement going on there, and that's been reported out. But I'm very happy to see, and I know that Hassan has been really important in this and getting this thing done. But there's a lot of momentum from the neighbors along Skyline right now to get something done. And that we're hearing from Ray Mueller, we're hearing from our elected officials in Sacramento, we're hearing from the sheriff's department, we're hearing from literally everybody that people are fed up. They're fed up with the noise, the speeding, the racing, the racetrack, the atmosphere that we've got, and everything else. And there's a lot of neighbors getting together with Hassan's help, with my help, with the town's help, and the sheriff's help, to try to finally get something done to really do something to remedy this nuisance that's been going on for decades. And I'm sorry to see that happen. But the reason, again, that I wanted to bring this up was I know there's people in the audience who have done a lot of research on this, have been pretty active on it, and I want to give them an opportunity to speak on this from the public. So I'll turn it back to the mayor.
Okay. And with that, we are opening public comment on any item on the town manager's report that you would like to speak to. Mr. Middleman.
Normally I don't come up twice.
Times.
David Middleman, 280 Grandview. In prepping my remarks tonight, it'll be no surprise to those who know me that I did some research. Over the past decade, there have been 38, and I apologize if some of this is repetitive, but thank you for the work you're doing. Over the past decade, there have been 38 traffic accidents, resulting in 38 non-fatal injuries and 2 fatalities, not including the one on Labor Day weekend, within a half mile of Skylonda. The 5 accidents within half a mile of the four-way stop outside Roberts over the past decade have resulted in only 3 non-fatal injuries. I stood here in July and reminded the council that the Skylonda Center plan is over 40 years old. None of the plan's 8 needed Skylonda improvements have been addressed. No crosswalks have been added since 1985. There's a photo that looks exactly the same on Apple Maps. That's on the center plan. None of the crosswalks have flashing lights. The speed reductions, as we've heard, are insufficient or without enforcement or rumbling strips. The utility poles are still in front of the buildings. Arterial light is just as bad as it was 40 years ago. And if you ask anyone on the Hill, there is still prolific outdoor alcoholic beverage consumption and loitering by bikers and joyriders in the Trading Post parking lot before they hop back on or in their vehicles and speed away. All 8 of these were cited as needed improvements in our plan in 1985. Supervisor Mueller has called for Caltrans to address the right-of-ways, but many of these improvements require town support. Caltrans has no jurisdiction over the commercial properties in Skylonda. For example, we could pass an ordinance limiting alcohol sales on the weekends during the day if we so choose, but that's a town decision. We also talked about emergency alerts and how we don't have control over PG&E and cell alerts. As part of that Skylonda Town Center plan, or maybe a Western Hills plan, we could do what Paradise did, but before Western Hills become Paradise. Paradise learned from the failure of their alerting system and installed 21 old school evacuation sirens in the town after the fire. I think I would ask you to consider expediting the formation of a second citizen advisory committee to address the Skylonda Center area plan and/or Western Hills area plan as a long-term solution to the problems that we're trying to address with short-term action. It is literally and currently a matter of life and death.
Thank you, David. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Karen Ellis, 126 La Honda Road on the edge of the Woodside boundary. I'm another resident of Skylonda who, like so many you've heard from tonight, I'm fed up beyond words with the out-of-control speeding and noise on Skyline Highway and Highway 84. In the 22 years I've lived here, I've watched the number of race cars and motorcycles violating speed and noise laws grow to where the impacts are undeniable. On weekends, the screeching tires and whining engines begin at 4 or 5 a.m. and go through the day and night around the clock. The speeds are so high that just exiting our driveway is dangerous because racers come around the blind curves so fast that we could easily be hit as we turn onto Highway 84. On summer weekends, it now feels as if we're under siege. I'm the person who recently ran the numbers on the Transportation Injury Mapping System database out of UC Berkeley and discovered that on the 45 miles of road from Kings Mountain to Highway 17, that's Skyline 84 and 9, there have been 26 deaths in 5 years and 854 crashes, more than 70% caused by some form of driving too fast. That's 170 crashes per year or 3 per weekend on a road that, with the exception of the racers, is really lightly traveled. Broken down by year, 2024 saw 188 crashes. That's just 2 shy of the all-time high of 194 years ago. Making matters worse, many of the crashes necessitate road closures that block the only way into and out of our homes. We have to cancel appointments, can't get to work, kids miss school, soccer games, etc. Equally bad, speeders hit power poles, causing us to lose electricity, sometimes for days. Food rots in the fridge, can't cook, no hot showers. You name the hassle, we've experienced it. Sometimes crash cars burst into flames and start fires that threaten our homes. I had to evacuate once when that happened. We were out of the house. 5 of us, a dog, a cat, 4 fish, 2 turtles, and a snake in 20 minutes flat. What can you do to help? My fondest dream would be for the town of Woodside to partner with the Sheriff's Department and CHP to send deputies up to Four Corners every weekend to stop cars and administer noise system tests. While exhaust system bypasses aren't a high-value ticket, they do require a fix-it certificate because setting up muffler bypasses can cost as much as $500. The offenders aren't likely to repeat. That would be too expensive. And because they're so often the same people who exceed the speed limits, this simple enforcement would A, improve safety, and B, significantly improve the quality of life for those of us suffering this ongoing harassment. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got our work cut out. Behavioral issues are an enforcement issue for sure. We have so many resources. Obviously, we're going to talk about that in a minute, and very limited dollars, but we hear you loud and clear. Let me just assure you. And I appreciate those statistics. They really drive home how extreme this situation is. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Walker Wells. I feel like at a high, we moved up here 5 years ago. We've got 3 kids, one at Armadale, and I feel like I have heard a lot that it's a decades old issue. And I think in a way, when I hear that, I think of like a sense of helplessness of like, it's been this way, it's always going to be kind of this way, but it doesn't have to be. And I think there's, as I've kind of thought through like why, it's kind of an interesting spot. It's at the corner of a lot of jurisdictions. And there's a lot of kind of, oh, that's someone else. You know, it's out of the way for the sheriff. It's at the corner of theirs. You know, CHP, they have a huge, amount of area. Town of Woodside owns the intersection. And it isn't even actually interesting to hear the context of, 10 years or in the 80s talking about crosswalks and lights. And, if you look at the condition of things up there, it's pretty bad. Like, it doesn't really feel like Caltrans is doing their part. But at a very high level, there feels like there's kind of a disconnect from the community up there. And I feel like our biggest advocate with Caltrans, and that's the town of Woodside. And the vast majority of people up there are not in the incorporated area. I don't think you're, to some extent, I believe, from just talking to people, somewhat insulated from just how bad it is. And we really need your help to build inroads with Caltrans. Obviously, it affects the town and other parts, like right out here with the highway. But we really need your help to build inroads with them to where they really are in touch. And then secondly, we really need your help, and I want to help you guys be in touch with the Four Corners community, even if it's not in the immediate, incorporated area of Woodside. But there's so many people that are affected up there. And of course, the people that are up there, they're, the opinions you hear from people, it really matters where you live. We hear shotgun exhaust like every 10 minutes going down Skyline and La Honda. Not everyone has that same issue. But really, we need your help for the sheriff, also like developing a reputation of enforcement. People who want to come up here, these aren't town of Woodside residents. It's motor tourism. And Caltrans right now is engineering this intersection not for the community that have to put up with it every single weekend. These people who are taking off their mufflers, racing up here, killing people, they go home and they might not come back for a few months, but we have to hear it every single weekend. So anyways, just I feel like we need to think about systemic differences and changes. That could be intersection design, could be parking, could be enforcement, but like, how do we not be talking about, what can we do to not be talking about this in 6 months, in a year, next year? Because otherwise it's just cat and mouse. So yeah, but thank you for all of your help and talking to some of you this week. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. And thank you. And as you know, I thought your email was so good, I forwarded it to State Senator Becker. We are doing everything we can at the political channel, everything in staff point of view. I don't know if you want to add anything. I know you've been in contact on county. We know there's an enforcement issue. We know there's a design issue. The vice mayor and I were talking the other day about perhaps putting together a public meeting, really, and a series of goals that we want to attain. Now, your point, I get it. We're Woodside, and the jurisdictions are what they are. But again, we hear you, and we'll be reconvening to talk more after the meeting for sure. So thank you. And again, the advocacy from everyone is fantastic. We're doing what we can to get it up the food chain to the people that are in control of these state agencies. And I think they're listening, so that's the good news. Yeah.
Just a couple quick points. One, I wanted to thank Walker, Aaron, and Kathy Simpson, her neighbor, who have put together a lot of this data there. I mean, I sort of sense, as I mentioned before, some real momentum now. I've mentioned this, I think, to each of you before because we spoke this last week, but this town council is very concerned about this issue. It's not lip service. And part of the reason is, and I think to Brian's credit and to the mayor before him, well, two mayors before him, Chris Shaw, they've been really active in pursuing relationships with our state officials. In this case, Mark Berman and Josh Becker. And also Ray Mueller, who's very close to us. Ray's been in this room more times than all the other county supervisors put together before him for the last 30 years, I'll bet. And so he's a very close colleague of ours, and he's been helpful. The reason I mention this is that Walker's exactly right. One, we don't get up there that often. I get up there when I go to Alice's restaurant. That's pretty much when I head up that way. So you're right, out of sight, out of mind. And you're not concerned with the issues I face in Woodside Hills. I get it. It's okay. But the one of the things is that it's a very complicated area because it's state highways and there's county, and I think you heard Captain Del Porto talk earlier about how the coastal side of the sheriff's office comes up to it, and then he covers it from Woodside branch here, kind of the bureau going up to the top of the hill. So it's a pretty complicated area. And that's why I mentioned the mayor's outreach to these officials. And my idea, and I know that I mentioned it to some of you, was to convene a meeting here. We actually did this when Highway 84 collapsed, and Ned Fluitt was a big part of that, and Chris Shaw was a big part of that. We had in this room representatives from the Sheriff's Department, from Caltrans, really importantly, from Caltrans, from the state level. I think, wasn't Josh Becker was here, I think. Mark Berman was here. Ray Mueller was here. So I mean, we had pretty much everybody that we needed in this room. The town council was here, and we were able, by the highway patrol was here as well. I remember he was sitting right there. It worked out well because everybody got on the same page very quickly. And I can tell you something, when the head of Caltrans, when the woman, I think it's District 4, sat here and said, we're going to get this done, things started happening literally the next day. I mean, because when what she says goes. I mean, we had all the bosses in the room at one time. And I think that might be an important thing to do, to have a public hearing. I'm not so sure it's going to happen, but I'd like to see it happen so that we can air these issues out with all of those officials, because it's going to take getting all these people on the same page to get something systemic done, not just, the occasional weekend enforcement, which, by the way, thank you. And it's very helpful, but it's not a solution. I mean, it's not a long-term fix, and we do need the long-term fix. And when you hear somebody like me, who doesn't go up there, it's not mine, you're in very good hands with Hassan, but I think that we want to see something get done. And as I said, the momentum is there now. So let's try to push this across the finish line. Probably a bad euphemism there, but let's try to get this thing done, and we can finally get some relief, long overdue, for the neighbors who live up there. And I think we're going to try to see that happen. And we're going to do our best from this side of it. We're not letting this thing go. So thank you for your engagement. We'll try to pick it up.
Yeah, of course.
Just as far as like systematic and ongoing efforts, I would be very interested in help organizing everything from a subcommittee. I don't know if that works, to basically continual communication between us and concerns up there, not just a one-off and, kind of it kind of goes along the lines with the systematic, but anything we can do to like make sure the community feels like they're able to really communicate the facts on the ground and what's really happening. So Caltrans can be informed, the person who is designing that intersection or any changes or whatever it may be, that really, Jamie and Andy, like their concerns for Alice's also should be heard. The businesses up there, like to balance those and really understand those on an ongoing basis. And I'd love to help in any way I can.
Yeah, we're going to need the business engagement as well.
We appreciate that. And I think the frustration that we have is we have a government agency in Caltrans that has become unresponsive to the people. And it's very difficult to get above Caltrans in the political spectrum to force the change. So consistent with what Vice Mayor Gold is talking about, consistent effort and advocacy through every channel that we have, public, county administration, or just administration, I should say, and through the political channels is what we're doing. We're spending hours on this, and we're doing what we can to elevate. So but we appreciate, and if we decide to get something going together where we get everybody in a room again, it's a great idea. Takes a little time to organize, but it's a great idea. So we'll see what we do. Yeah, David, you're coming back for a fifth bite at the apple tonight.
3.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead, sir.
Caltrans is an issue,
Yeah.
but what we're trying to say is it's not the only thing in the room. And a lot of the same things that we're talking about the current TCAP-CAC for town center with regards to speed limits, signage, pedestrian circulation, utilities, how businesses operate, are all things that we're trying to talk about right now. And yes, it would be great to get a meeting of the minds, a one-time meeting of the minds to address those issues. But from our perspective, I think what we're trying to say is putting off addressing it from an area plan and then engaging that area plan with an actionable plan until after we finish the 18-month town center plan is not quite acceptable.
Other comments? Okay, I think we will close down the town manager report then and close down public comment on that. And we will thank you all. We do appreciate the advocacy and thank you for being here to get it through. We'll go on to the circulation and appointments, and I'm going to hand it off to you, Vice Mayor.
Yes, there is one nomination for the Circulation Committee. Mr. Steve Lubin has been nominated. I was in touch with, and by the way, the committee, which is comprised of myself and Councilmember Wall, concur with appointing or recommending the appointment of Mr. Lubin to the Circulation Committee. I was in touch with Asan, who is the chair of the Circulation Committee, and just to point out that we know that Mr. Lubin has a very strong interest in bicycles and converting as many people as he can to using bicycles around town. We just wanted to clarify, I think we're kind of united in this and aligned in this. And by the way, I think Mr. Lubin is as well, in case he's listening. The Circulation Committee involves all the transportation in town. It's not a bicycle committee, but I think that his voice is an important one, and we are recommending his appointment to the Circulation Committee. So I will nominate him. Needs a nomination, correct? Of a motion. I'll make a motion that we appoint Steve Lubin to the Circulation Committee.
Second.
Thank you.
And before we vote, an issue was brought up by a citizen, former council member, around the way the wording is in the document around de facto endorsement, when in fact people may be listed that are not endorsed, and it's about the language that sort of confers a very sort of opaque it's just very opaque. And I was thinking that if we changed the language or gave direction in this as well to simply say, I have contacted these individuals and they have agreed to serve as references for my candidacy, would be a far better way than simply Woodside residents qualified to comment on my capabilities, because they may or may not have been contacted. So I would also just suggest as maybe part of the motion that we would advocate or give direction to upgrade the language in that section of the applicant form.
Is that okay with you? We will amend the motion. Is that okay with you, Sam?
Yes.
Okay.
Second?
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to consent agenda. Took us a little while to get there tonight, but all items on the consent are considered routine and will be approved by one roll call motion unless a request is made at the beginning to pull any item. Are there any items that any council member would like to pull from the consent agenda?
5? I'd like to pull 5.
5, we're pulling 5. Any others? All right, with that, can we get a motion for 1 through 4 and 6 through 9?
So moved.
Second?
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, and back to you, Councilmember Aberish, on number 5.
Yes, so I had a couple things. One, I know that one member of the public in my district contacted me and asked if I would pull this one and so we could have public comment on it. I also just had a couple of questions. I noticed that it was recommended, and alternatives, town council could choose not to adopt a resolution granting consent. Staff does not recommend this option. I'm just curious why, but I see benefits from it. Is there any downside to it that you're aware of?
Ultimately, from my perspective, having worked 10 years in the wine industry, I personally don't see a downside to it, but it's really at the discretion of the council. So ultimately, how a business improvement district operates is that businesses, in this instance, wineries, within the Santa Cruz Mountain AVA district for wine are pooling their resources. They're working together to essentially take a fee and pass that down to the consumer, which then they will take that funding back in and market the area known as the Santa Cruz Mountain AVA to the wine community, thereby invigorating the economy for the wineries within the Santa Cruz Mountain AVA. And so ultimately, from a business perspective or in the supporting of the small wineries and the historical relevance of the wineries within the town of Woodside, you have a recommendation to approve from staff for that reasoning. But we also do have from Civitas, Kelly on the line that can speak a little bit more about this particular item. So she is available to join the conversation. Kelly Rankin, if you wanted to chime in at this time.
Good evening, council members. My name is Kelly Rankin. I'm a project manager with Civitas. We are the legal consulting firm who is partnered with the Santa Cruz Mountain Wine Growers Association. A little bit more background on this item. So we actually started this initiative with a feasibility study back in August of last year, checking the temperature of the wineries that would be affected by this assessment. Having received positive feedback from that opened up the door for us to move forward with the formation of the Wine Improvement District earlier this year. February, we started drafting the management district plan and began our petition drive where we had to get supportive signatures from the petition, the wineries included under the assessment. We did that from May to June, and we received 60% overall. That's based on weighted value to initiate the proceedings. So we've had 2 stops at the County of Santa Cruz to move this forward. That included a resolution of intention, also the resolution requesting consent that you have before you. And today we had our public meeting. So we have had a lot of support for this initiative, and there's a lot of wineries out there. So we are continuing the outreach alongside all of this. But in terms of benefit, it is a small assessment in comparison to some other districts that I've worked on. There's 4 other wine districts in existence right now. You have Temecula. They are at a 1% assessment, just like this one is proposed to be. Amador County at 1% as well. Livermore, they are actually at 2%. And then Santa Barbara County recently just formed. I believe they're at 2%. So this assessment can be passed on to the customer. Most oftentimes it is. So in terms of benefit to the smaller wineries, it's a pass along straight to the customer where, the AVA can now provide services to increase the notoriety of the area and bring more people into their tasting rooms, which is usually a cost that smaller wineries can't afford on their own. The AVA is also going to stop their membership dues and rely solely on the assessment funds from this district to continue their services. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
I have a couple. Is it usually in the other towns that you've worked with or areas, districts, is there a significant increase in foot traffic? Like, is it, 20% or 10%, 50%?
So in terms of wine districts in particular, they are pretty brand new. The first one was only formed in 2020. So the ROI is still revealing itself. But similar model tourism improvement districts, the ROI is very huge. And anytime that we have a district up for renewal, it's always renewed. So I can share that with you.
And the one concern that was raised, the person I spoke to, was traffic, especially where I live, which is Highway 84, which, near Highway 35, and quite windy roads. And, if there's still a decent number of large wineries up there. And if you increase traffic of people driving between the wineries and alcohol, I remember growing up in Sonoma County, there were definitely issues in Sonoma with people driving between wineries, getting intoxicated. And is that an issue that that this would consider deal with? Is there anything that could be done? Or is this?
Sure, it's definitely something that's been brought up to my client, Keiki McKay. She's with the Santa Cruz Mountain Wine Growers Association. It is not the intention with these services to increase traffic. There are proposed wayfinding signage to be implemented with the special projects, but really the intention of bringing more people to the tasting room is high quality clients, not people that are there to, bounce around to a bunch of wineries, people that are really there to enjoy the wine. So they're also targeting high value customers.
Got it. So there would be, like you said, wayfinding. So would that be like paths, recommended travel routes between the wineries?
That's correct. So it's easier to locate the wineries.
Is that something that's publicly, how is that considered or determined?
So the AVA board would make those specific decisions once they have enough funding to start putting those programs into place.
Got it. And would there be any input from the public? Like, for example, if it was going to be recommended that it go through Old La Honda Road, which is a very windy road, I imagine it wouldn't be a good idea, but would there be an opportunity for public comment?
Absolutely. So once this district is in place, the board of directors will be subject to Brown Act. So all of these meetings will be open to the public.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, since the item was pulled, we'll just check if there are any public comments that would be like to be entered into the record or not. And we have Virginia Dare.
Good evening. I just spent, half an hour listening to the problems that we have on Skyline. And I have enjoyed my time on the Santa Cruz Mountain Wine Trail. It's really great because they do provide a map and you do drive around, try a little bit here, try a little bit there. I'm very concerned that traffic would be directed from, let's say, the Portola Valley Winery, which, is called out in this report, to, let's say, Fogarty. And the most direct route for that, whether it's on the map or not, is up Old La Honda Road. And I just don't see wine tasting and Old La Honda Road as compatible. That's my input. I think if we're going to participate in this, which I think is great, I'm all in favor of wineries and promoting their businesses. But if we're going to participate in this, there needs to be some notification of when these routes are discussed. I'm not sure that telling us that this is, covered by the Brown Act is actually sufficient to make me feel okay about this. It's not really the money issue, it's more the access issue that I'm concerned about. The increased traffic is what I'm concerned about. It's my comment. Thanks for all you do, guys.
Thank you, Virginia. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that. I mean, the businesses are already in place, are they not? Yeah. Okay.
I think Virginia just makes the point that wine tasting and
And Windy
and
Road,
are not
yeah.
a great mix, and I can't disagree with what she's saying, but I also, I think that the town manager made a good point, having been in this business for an awful long time, that, helping the commerce of these businesses is important too.
Do we know whether this assessment district includes every single winery in the district, even one that's not selling to the public?
That's a great question, and I believe that it does. I believe that ultimately it's kind of a 50% plus one situation. But Kelly, could you kind of speak to upon the vote, does this mean if this were to pass that every single winery is now within the wine improvement district?
I think we're trying here, Kelly. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. So,
Can you hear me?
yes, now we can.
Oh,
Excellent.
okay. So one clarifying comment I wanted to make as well is the assessment is also placed on shipments and anything that's ordered online, wine club shipments, etc. So it's not purely based on who is physically in the winery or the tasting room. Secondly, once the wine district is formed, yes, it is compulsory. So everybody is included within that boundary. Everybody pays the assessment, everybody benefits.
Excuse me, did you say it was not included of club sales?
It will include wine club
Will
sales.
include wine club sales.
Yes, but will not include wholesale.
Okay, thank you. What would you like to do, council member?
I think it makes sense. It seems beneficial. I do agree that there are some, Virginia Dare raises some good points about safety. I think that's kind of an issue. Probably let's cross that bridge when we get there. Maybe we're not there yet. So I think, this is step one. And I think being aware, I don't know if there's a way we can make sure we stay apprised of, and if there's a way to know when these kind of things are happening, when the board is going to make decisions, and if we can be involved in it at all. I think it would be beneficial to everybody, and Woodside anyway. But yeah, so I would be supportive of just moving forward and approving this.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jennifer?
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
No.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. We have the resolution to execute our law enforcement contract with the San Mateo Sheriffs. And included in that is the memorandum of understanding, which I think is about to be circulated for the $200,000. I don't know how to phrase it. It's a $200,000 of
Credit.
funding.
Credit is what they're
Credit
calling.
is the right way to do it. From the, thank you. Thank you. No, bad catch is what it was. So Jason, I'm handing it off to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll have the clerk pull up a brief slideshow that I have to go through this evening. And on the last slide of this slideshow, we'll get into the MOU that you've just been handed. So ultimately, what I want to showcase to you on this first slide is that we're looking at, on the left-hand side, we're looking at last year's contract essentially, and on the right-hand side, we're looking at this year's contract. So the slide compares last year's service and cost levels to this year's service and cost quote. You can kind of see immediately, and I'm sorry, this is relatively fuzzy, but you can see that on the left-hand side, we're going from an allocation of a captain of 12.5% of that person's time is escalating to 25%. You can also see on the right-hand side of each slide is that for the most part, the costs are escalating within the context of the services that are being delivered. So ultimately, for the deputy sheriff daytime, we have 2.0 on the position count. In 24-25, we paid about $764,000. In the following year here, 25-26, we're going to pay about $792,000. So things are escalating is what we're seeing here. The San Mateo County Sheriff's Office articulated through this negotiation that the costs to the contract, to our contract, they're pass-through costs. And so what does that mean? It means that that San Mateo County Sheriff's Office is not making money, but they're claiming that this is the cost of them hiring these employees. This is the cost for them to staff our contract. And so ultimately, there's really no way to cut the cost of this from their perspective unless you were to actually cut the service level. So the overall projected increase year over year from this contract is a 9% year over year increase, going from just over $3 million last year to about $3.3 million this current year that we're in. And so one of the other interesting caveats to this negotiation was that in past contracts, Woodside had an increase cap. So it was an increase cap of 7%. What does this mean? This means that the contract could not increase beyond 7% annually. So this provision is no longer offered in contracting with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office. So nobody is receiving this cap. And on the sheriff is required essentially within the terms of this deal is that annually in April, they have to provide us with the updated costs of the following year or whatever it is going to cost them to provide the service to this contract. And also that within the contract, the town can exit this agreement in writing with a 12-month lead time to the county. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, this is a bit tough to read, it looks like up there. I'm not sure what it looks like on the television, but ultimately on the left side here, we have, it shows the historical increases year over year on the actual cost to the town. So if you go from 2019 up to 2026, you can start to see some of those escalations, and they start out because there was a cap, right? So it was 3.5, 4.5, and then we have a huge escalation to 9.7. And then we're just trending over 7% year over year of the escalation of costs since 2022. So this would be our trend, in my opinion, is that the trend is that there is an increase of cost to the town of roughly 7+% year over year for this service. On the right side of the slide, we have the projected out 7% increase year over year. So if we take our trend and we say, hey, we're going to believe this trend is going to continue, we can kind of map out what that cost is going to look like if the trend escalates at 7% over time. And so over a 9-year period to 2034, what we see is that on an annual basis, if the trend continues, that the town will be obligated to pay an extra $2 million annually compared to what it currently pays for the service of this contract. Next slide, please. Can you back up one slide? I think there was a slide prior to this. Yeah, perfect. So Every year, the council approves a budget for the town of Woodside, and within that budget are future forecasts. So you're actually approving these hypothetical revenues and expenses that we're projecting out over 10 years. And so ultimately, they're just trends to try to showcase if we think we're gonna have an issue or we're not gonna have an issue. And so if we take the budget forecast for the expected costs of future law enforcement services, and we look at the 7% increasing annual projections for servicing a law enforcement services contract that increases by 7% annually, we mathematically find a gap or a shortfall in ultimately what we have been projected out on our costs versus what we believe our actuals to be. And so on the right side of the left-hand side here, you can see in 2027, that gap is $327,000, and all the way up in 2034, there's a gap of $1 million hypothetically. So on the right side, we can see that the budget approval revenue projections for the future budgets of the town are trending between 3 and 4%, and I am juxtaposing that with the comparison that I have told you that the trend line currently is 7% for the sheriff's contract. So what does all of this mean? This is just proving out that there is an escalation over time, more than we are currently bringing in over revenue. On the increase of revenue year over year is increasing at a much lower rate than the cost of this contract. Next slide, please. So just to showcase, the staff is not recommending any service cut to the current contract, but just to showcase to the council, based off of speaking with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, they explicitly explained to us that the cost of this contract are pass-through costs. Wanted to kind of just articulate and showcase that if we were to look at or find ourselves in a situation in the future that we were looking at making an adjustment to the service that is being provided, the most logical location to look would be that we currently pay for 2 motorcycles, that hypothetically, if you were to cut one of those motorcycles, that you could see a hypothetical value over a 9-year period of $3.7 million all told, if you take the current cost and add the escalation of a 7% year-over-year increase to that contract. And so, not advocating for any level of service change, but wanted to showcase to the council that we should be thinking about this in the back of our heads as we continue to see how the economy works for us versus the escalations within this contract year over year. Next slide. And so finally, following back up with the emergency MOU, which provides essentially a credit of $200,000 to Woodside from the San Mateo County County Administration Office. What transpired ultimately is that you can see that there's, maybe you can see, I don't know, I need glasses from this angle here, but there's some red numbers up here. And so ultimately digging through the contract and continuing the negotiation, I started to summarize, or staff started summarizing this contract, and it came to our attention that ultimately that the numbers did not actually add up. That ultimately there was an added $100,000 cost for a service that was no longer being provided in last year's contract. That was not that was explicitly spelled out in the prior year contracts that we had articulated. We wanted this service, it was provided, and we paid for it. Whereas last year, it was not in the contract at all. It was completely removed, but the Excel spreadsheet utilized by the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office accidentally, in my opinion, it was left in, and so the cost was still actually summarized, and the town overpaid by $100,000. And so ultimately, in this particular quoted contract that we have in front of us, we're also hypothetically getting this overcharge of $100,000. And so in order to rectify this with technically kind of what's going on at the sheriff's office currently, it was a lot easier for staff to work with the administrative office, because in order to keep the sheriff's budget whole and the town of Woodside's whole, the MOU has been created to basically send the credit over to the sheriff's office, thereby not affecting their budget with the work that they're doing within the county, and then make the town of Woodside whole with this $200,000 credit. That is all I have. So I'm not sure if that is clear as mud or if I can answer some questions for you on this.
It's wonderful. And before we delve into it, on behalf of the entire council, I just want to thank you for doing what you always do, which is being very meticulous and going through this contract and doing the due diligence and finding, we can't see it anymore. Our eyes can't see it. So a fresh pair of eyes like you coming in, might need eye. There's a bit of an eye chart right here, but you might need, you brought that to this, and you really, this $200,000 that you've highlighted to the county and having the county come in with the credit is just a tremendous value add. So I just wanted to recognize that first. I'll just start with one question first, which is obviously the eventuality here is that this is outstripping us 3-1, if you will, in our growth rate. So ultimately, this will translate into a service cut unless we can find funding. And one way of finding funding could be a revenue measure for policing in Woodside. And what would that, I mean, this is a, I didn't ask you this question before, but what goes into that? What needs to happen if we are trying to, if we needed to pass a ballot measure? I mean, all we heard tonight was we need more enforcement everywhere. So cutting services is not on the table. The issue is, you know, maybe what we're hearing is there's support for a ballot measure to get us another couple $1 million a year, and we can double the impact we're having or something. So what has to happen if we want to get a measure on the ballot, and what do we need to have that thing pass?
Yeah, ultimately, I'd say first and foremost, you would direct staff to do some research on the pathways that you can bring a ballot measure forward, because ultimately you have a multitude of different pathways, whether that be a property tax assessment or whether that be a sales tax, whether that be a Mello-Roos or whether that be a 50% plus one. We would also work with the company, more than likely. I mean, there would probably be an RFP out, but on the line tonight, we had Kelly Rankin with Civitas, and that's essentially what they're doing currently for the Santa Cruz Mountain Wine Growers Association, is that there's consultant groups that work with you that would poll your public to gain a better understanding as to whether or not there's even interest in what you're attempting to wanting to do. And then ultimately, you have a scope of work that you're trying to facilitate, right? So we would ultimately come up with a scope of work that we're trying to facilitate. We'd work with the sheriff's office. We'd determine how much that cost was. We would then look at informing the council to that cost. I would assume that that's what we're looking for, is that escalated cost is what we're trying to bring in as revenue in order to cover that gap. And then ultimately it would be we would pose a number of different pathways to the council. So maybe a property tax, maybe a sales tax. We're a high property tax community, just so you know. We're about roughly $700,000 in sales tax, which is relatively low. We're more of a property tax. And so it would just take direction from council to initiate that process, and we would come back with probably a bullet point, one-page paper outlining how we would go about doing it and what the different pathways that council could choose to do that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I know it might start to get beyond the scope of what's before us, but I personally am there when I think about the eventualities, and you know, a low-functioning government body would wait till the crisis unfolds and then do something. We know, you can see what's going to happen, and this is a very high-functioning government body that can be anticipatory. So you know, money is fungible. It's not just the gap that, you know, I think there could be something that we could pursue here that, you know, obviously a lot of neighboring communities are putting these measures on ballots, and this is one that we heard very clearly tonight, and we all know that we need more of, not less of. So we can't afford it. It's really tough to talk to the community all night long and always basically have to fold. We can't afford it. Can anyone else lean in and help us? No. We're going to give 93% of our tax dollars away to the county to be reallocated. We're going to try to solve these problems that just seem unsolvable. So a little bit of frustration with that, but I would, as part of this long-term, I personally would be very interested in in hiring a consultant to take a look at the issue. Throw that out.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, specific to contract states that it's got basically 6.0 positions that are basically day-to-day, officers. Wow, how do we have any control over when they're on vacation? Who covers? When they're off on training programs? When a motorcycle is out for repair, which has happened quite frequently. How do they plug in somebody to replace that? Or is that a credit? Or how does that work in the budget here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And currently, from my perspective, there is no summarization of costs, of actual costs that then is getting credited hypothetically back to the town. Is that ultimately, at least in the last year of this contract, that did not transpire since I've been here. And so one thing that I do want to point out, I think it's a great opportunity because you've segued into this, is that you'll see the position count next to these different positions. And so as an example, you'll see Deputy Sheriff Day, and it'll say 2.0. And me, being a very simple person, thought that meant we had 2 sheriff deputies here during the day. And I was alerted by the sheriff that that's not the case, that we have to actually help pay for the second position, because inevitably over the course of the hours within the 7 days a week, is that there's a period of time that you don't have that person, that original person. And so you have to cover those days with this extra body. But that does not apply to the motorcycles. We purposely have 2 motorcycles. So technically it's Monday through Thursday and Tuesday through Friday. So technically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there should be 2 bikes here the entire time. And so I think that there's an opportunity between myself and Frank Del Porto to really start to dig a little bit deeper into managing this contract to better understand the schedule of who's here and who's working based off of the expectation of the contract versus what we see sometimes hypothetically. So I think that we have an established relationship where we can start moving in that direction, and it really just comes to the town's expectations to manage this contract and have expectation to who is physically here. But there is no end of the year summarization of true costs that the sheriff currently does that I'm aware of, that then would have a turnaround, hand money back to the town saying, hey, we didn't use all of the money, or we had somebody go work another event and they didn't do the overtime for you. That's currently not how this is being administered.
And just for your, since you're new here, I'm aware of a number of times this last few years in which motorcycles have been down for repair. There's nobody comes in on the motorcycle, replace that. How's that get replaced? And they're on vacation. In fact, they're shorthanded for a good part of last year or two, and some of the turmoil that was going on in the sheriff's department. Who replaced that time for us? That's kind of what I'd like to, maybe just a management thing, but I want to make sure that's on the record with you. We want accountability for getting that time replaced. We lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I can take that direction and start managing this contract in that fashion.
So my understanding, my information is dated, as you might suspect, but my understanding was when you're paying for, so one full-time employee, daytime, so that's roughly 12 hours each day for 7 days. That's 84 hours, I think, something like that. I'm not mistaken. But it's 80 hours. That's why there's 2 full-time. That's why they cover that with 80 hours. So my understanding is we're paying for those. They're supposed to be here. That includes vacation. So that extra person that you were talking about is there to cover for the vacation or to cover on other times. So you actually, it's like when you get like the Secret Service with 24/7 protection. That's not one person. You need 7 or 8 people to cover holidays, weekends, nights, everything else. It takes a lot of people. And that's why you need 2 to just cover the full time. The sheriff is able to do it, my understanding is because there's so many deputies that they have that they can rotate them in. We're never supposed to be without. So even if they're on vacation, my understanding, I may be wrong, but this is something to certainly watch, is that it is supposed to be covered, vacation, sickness, whatever. Now, there is a loophole that we're kind of in mutual aid. So when they're needed elsewhere, when they need to flood the zone, for instance, let's just say that there's some incident in San Carlos, our deputies may actually end up in San Carlos. So we are, but by the same token, they flood the zone in Woodside when there's a fire at Edgewood. So, I mean, you sort of, it works both ways. And so one of them is sort of like catch as you can, and the other one is planned. The first one I was talking about is planned when there's a vacation, a sickness or whatever. So it's to be covered by other people.
The reason I asked the question,
Yeah.
simply that several times on the circulation committee,
Yeah.
when the sheriff reported the results of the last month or 2 months, I said, well, we didn't have a motorcycle, or we were short manpower this month, so
No, you make a great point.
our ticket count was
I
down.
got it. I agree with
That's
you.
something that I want us to really be on top
Yeah,
of.
and my point is just that's supposed to not happen. That's
No.
supposed to be covered. If the motorcycle is down, there's a lot of motorcycles in their motor pool. They can kind of, figure that out, or other people.
And we get the flex up, right? Tonight we heard there were 30 vehicles, sheriff vehicles during the Edgewood fire issue.
Yes.
It does work both
They can
ways.
flood the zone. That's actually the whole advantage,
That's
one of
the
the
whole-
biggest advantages of using the sheriff and not our
Yeah.
own police department.
But to Dick's point, I mean, if you just think about management and efficiencies, is it more efficient to have a motorcycle on Whiskey Hill issuing tickets for people going 55 and a 45, or have that guy up at Four Corners? I think we can do,
It's going to change. It'll rotate.
it'll rotate. We don't want to get in the way of what the sheriffs think they need to do. They're the experts, but at the same time, we need to prioritize. We need to prioritize where there's real issues right now.
Can I
So,
ask the town manager
yeah.
just to review what our service is right now? So there's there's 2 deputies, my understanding is 2 patrol cars. Let's view it that way. 1 during the day, 1 at night.
That's correct. Sorry, we pay for it's 2 for 1, right? So we're paying for 2 deputies during the day, which equates to 1 physically here. We're paying for 2 during the night, which equates to 1 physically here. And then we're paying for 2 different bikes, one that works Monday through Thursday and the other that works Tuesday through Friday, I believe. And then
So they overlap Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
that is my understanding, yeah.
There's 2.
And then we pay 50% of an investigative deputy detective. We pay 25% of an administrative sergeant, and we now pay 25% of the captain position.
Okay. So those last ones that you mentioned, I'm more concerned with what we see, which is patrols. So, okay. All right. That clarifies it for me.
Other questions, if any? I think we'll then turn to public comment. Any members of the public that wish to speak on the issue of the sheriff's contract? Just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll let you in. Oh, Ms. Hanson?
Hi, thank you. And I really appreciate the discussion between Councilmember Brown and our town manager. With the circulation committee, we've been told multiple times that the deputies and personnel that we have access to from the town really varies. And so it's not only just a warm body. We have been told over the past year or 2 that there have been deputies assigned to Woodside that are not trained for moving violations. They concentrate on stop sign violations. So I guess part of my question as we manage this contract would be what are the qualifications of the personnel that we are allocated? Because there are some deputies who seem to be not familiar with the duties that this position requires. Also through the circulation committee, we've really worked with some amazing people, and some of the San Mateo County Sheriff's personnel are pretty data driven. and some are data devoid. So I don't know how we can we can make sure we're getting what we paid for. Also, it seems to me that there really isn't any type of audit or performance review or validation for costs. And in a business perspective, that just really doesn't make me feel very comfortable. I really question, should taxpayers have the burden of paying more for services that maybe have never even been provided? We're just being told that this is their cost. In addition, I have a concern that we're going to pay for the operating costs for scandals and mismanagement and other organizational problems through the sheriff's office. I don't want to pay for that. And I can speak for other citizens who feel like the level of service that we have been promised in some cases really has not been met. So I appreciate the interest in managing this contract. I feel like there should be some repercussions if the level of service that's been promised to us hasn't been achieved. And I love that Jason has dug in deep on this, and I encourage him to keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. It's an interesting question, the question of an audit trail on services delivered versus not. I don't know. I mean, we're not here to take attendance. We're not in that business. And neither would we know necessarily where everyone is at any given time. But I don't know if there's a way to do that effectively or not. Anything that occurs to you, or maybe it's a conversation between you and Frank at some point.
I think it's exactly that. I think it's a conversation with myself and Frank Del Porto, and I'll just kind of chime back in on what the Ms. Hanson was saying, and that ultimately it is a very, I'm coming into the peninsula here at a very interesting time for San Mateo County and not quite understanding what is going on with the sheriff position and what will go on with the sheriff position in the future. But ultimately, regardless of what happens in the future, is that right now that is happening. And so ultimately, it is slightly difficult to really engage the sheriff position at this time. And so even if this person is still within the position moving forward, I think that they'll have more time to engage us, quite frankly, on these exact questions. But ultimately, that is my goal, is to work with Captain Del Porto on the expectations that I think I'm hearing this evening, the expectations of the staffing and the expectations of the quality of the work that's getting done and where the work is being assigned, especially based off of what we heard tonight at the start of the meeting. It's loud and clear is that we want to see more, we want to see the motorcycles in very key areas of the community. And it doesn't have to be on the weekend. If they're here on a Tuesday, believe me, there's people going up to the La Honda area on the weekday as well.
That's a perfect encapsulation. Thank you. Other public comments? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, we will close public comment and turn to council deliberation. Anyone would like to speak on this issue? Councilmember Abarish.
First, thank you for all the graphs. I feel like that's really great information. I feel like it just demonstrates very clearly, the situation we're in, which is the cost of this contract is going to exceed our budget eventually. And the sooner we come to terms with that and figure out a solution, I think the better. And it's a complicated issue. I feel like it is something I see, if like the town, nobody wants less police. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement. And so, but then it's going to be, okay, well, who's going to pay for it? And, our current budget isn't going to cover it for the next, I don't know when we would run out, but I definitely don't want to be in the same situation as Portola Valley, that's kind of the direction it's headed if we just close our eyes and keep running. So I think Councilmember Brown also raised a great point, which is, to the extent possible, can we make sure, we're auditing it? I don't know. I really don't know if we can audit or, obviously, I mean, they weren't paying close enough attention the sheriff's department, or whoever was charging us kept charging us an extra 100,000 a month. Great job again, catching that. Are they paying attention, or is it just kind of money goes in and services go out and we send them where we need them kind of thing? Or are we actually getting what we're paying for? And is there a way to track it? I think sounds like you're already on top of that. And, but obviously, we don't want to increase costs and still get the same level of service, or decrease costs and, and find out later that it's not what we wanted. So I think I agree with our mayor, that this is something we need to get ahead of right away and as soon as possible, and figure out, next steps of, what are we going to do? Is it an increased tax? And, it seems like a large part of the need for it is coming from outside. It's not people living in Woodside are not increasing crime. I don't believe that for a second. I think it's people coming from outside to visit, certain restaurants and things like that. So does it make sense maybe, to tap on them and help have them share some of the costs? Maybe not saying that is the solution, but maybe something to think about. But for now, I think great job getting this, getting a contract in place. And so I would support it, obviously.
Great. Others, Councilman.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on one thing. We certainly, as a council, should be looking hard future, what do we want to do? One thing that I do want to point out to Ron's point is almost 70% or more of the tickets that are written are for bicycles or cars for out of town people. And we're paying for 2 motorcycles to write tickets. Somehow that doesn't, if it helping protect America, California, Woodside residents from that possible problems, maybe that's great, but something to think about whether that makes sense. I do want to say that I think the quality of the sheriff's representatives that service us has been outstanding. Every single one of them that I meet with, talk with, are terrific. And look at the statistics on crime. We're doing extremely well compared to our neighbors. Atherton's probably got at least double or more the budget. I think they have as many as 40, at least, on the payroll. And their crime rate is higher than ours, quite a bit higher than ours. So I think there's a lot we can say positive about what the department's doing, and we just need to kind of fine tune how the contract is administered and what do we want to do going forward. Are there new ideas for how to protect ourselves?
Okay. And Vice Mayor Gold.
First, great job on the contract, especially under with what's going on at the sheriff's department right now. I appreciate you getting this through in such a timely manner and done so well. It's really quite a nice windfall for the town. Just a couple of quick comments. One, I agree with what Dick just said about the quality and the level of service that we get. There's always discussions. I was involved with some of the folks at Atherton. They were talking to me about they were at one point going to the sheriff's department and essentially assimilating their police force into the sheriff's department and kind of letting them do it because they have their own dispatch. They have their own, they actually use the jail at the county, but they have to lease that. Ours is sort of built into our agreement. So the ability to surge, the ability to bring on extra people, it was, I really like the level of service that we get and the quality of the deputies that are assigned here. And one of the things that they said in Atherton was how much they like having their own captive police force because they call it concierge service. Their cops actually bring in garbage cans for their residents if they're on vacation. They have keys to they do a lot of like pretty weird stuff, I think. That's true, by the way. And if I have a feeling if they're like a little bit tipsy as they come out of Selby's one night, they'll give them a ride home as well if they need to do that. So, and I said, you know something, I couldn't get better service from our deputies. I've never asked them to give me a ride home. But I feel like they're a captive police force for us. They're that good. I mean, they really give us a very high level of service, and I think they do provide us the kind of accommodations and personalization that, quite frankly, our citizens demand. The second thing I wanted to mention was that the priorities shift. And if you'll remember, this isn't going back in history very far. A few years ago, we had a rash of home burglaries. And that's when the detectives really sort of stepped up, Detective Bagetta in particular. But I mean, there's a few, suddenly they increased the patrols in the residences, and the Glens got hit hard. I think Woodside Heights got hit, Woodside Hills did. Emerald Hills got, I mean, so there were areas that actually got hit pretty hard, and they suppressed that pretty nicely. Right now, it's Four Corners and Skyline. That's sort of our big area, and the motorcycles can be a really big help in that. And so we'll shift it around. And I think that the flex of the sheriff's department is sort of a nice feature that we have there. And the last thing I wanted to say is that I think that with regard to the budget and looking at additional taxes, I think Hassan made a great point, and maybe a tourist type tax or a restaurant tax. You know, we now have the TCAP going on. That might be an opportunity for us to look at this and say, maybe that's the area that we want to sort of drive revenues, because let's be frank, those are a lot of the folks that are doing the speeding up on Skyline and some of the other issues that have been referred to here tonight. But one of the things I wanted to point out is those are projections. The 7% increase overall this time, it could be less than that. It could be way more than that too. We just don't know. The 4% assumption on our revenues on that side to see what the balance is, that could be way off too. We just don't know what that's going to be. That said, I think you used the word a high functioning council. I actually like that. That's a nice phrase. But I think that we do need to be proactive. It'd be nice to be ahead of this thing. And, you know, I think it's more appropriate for a sales tax than a parcel tax or a property tax supplement. I think it's more of a sales tax issue for the reasons that actually Dick mentioned before and Hassan mentioned before that. But I think that that might be the way to go. I just don't see any real urgency to it right now. I mean, it'd be nice to stay ahead of it, but I don't think we need to do it this week or this month or this year. It's something that we need to get a handle on the projections first, and that's going to take a little bit of time to sort of work through.
It's great. So I think what we are hearing is that there is a majority that would be interested in pursuing any of these issues. I mean, we're a very small sales tax town. I mean, a couple of bucks per 100,000 on a parcel tax will go a lot farther than 1% incremental sales. But let's hear what a consultant would say. I'd love to hear it. I know that if we try to do a ballot measure for a very specific thing, it's one of those supermajority deals versus general fund. But I think people would still be more amenable to policing as an idea versus a general fund and situation. But anyway, that's all opinion. Let's hear, I mean, it's a good 2026, 27 exploration, and we'll see if something's ready for the 28 ballot when it comes around. Or not, we'll find out. Look, for now, I mean, per the staff recommendation, I'm fully on board. Again, absolutely impressed with finding the unintentionally hidden cells on a spreadsheet. So thank you. A lot of value created there, and it's wonderful. You've developed really great relationships with Frank, and this effort that really came about almost in the 72-hour period from the county administrator after you met with him to be ready for today is super impressive, and it really speaks to the strength of the relationship you're building there too. So I'm very much in the favor camp, like everybody else. So if we could get a motion on the resolution, we're going to take these separate, right? Yes, that's what I just heard a moment ago. So we need a resolution first on item A, and then we would do the memorandum, accepting the memorandum of understanding.
All right, I'll take a shot at it. I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement on behalf of the town of Woodside for law enforcement services between the county of San Mateo and the town of Woodside for the term commencing July 1st, 2025, terminating June 30th, 2030.
Second.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Gold.
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, and that's the second clumsy statement you were able to correct tonight.
Was that a correction in there? Was that a typo? The with? Okay. I stumbled on it. So I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the Jason Ledbetter Pays for Himself Memorial Memorandum of Understanding between the County of San Mateo and the town of Woodside regarding credit, the Jason Ledbetter credit under Law Enforcement Services Agreement.
Second.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Gold.
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we just have a couple items left. This information only situation, Jean, what are we doing there? We're just accepting, we don't need to vote.
It's just for your
in the
information.
report.
So this was, we're using the almanac. Period. Good choice.
Volunteer committee updates. I see Melissa's not here. Anything we want to throw in the mix?
Yeah, I have some updates from Melissa. I have 3 different updates here. The Circulation Committee will be meeting on September 18th. Residents wishing to discuss recent bicycle incidents and Caltrans projects should plan on attending that meeting. The agenda will be posted on September 15th. The Spirit of Woodside Photography Contest is still open for youth to submit their photographs until October 1st. A $100 Michael shopping spree has been added for the grand prize winner. Please help spread the word to have youth in our community participate. And then finally, the Volunteerism Committee decided to postpone the start of the Kids Civic Program to begin January 9th for 5 Fridays. When they met in August, they realized it was going to be a quick turnaround at the start of the school to try to get signups and decided to postpone that program. That's all I have.
Any questions on volunteerism? Okay, council communications. Anyone have anything they want to throw into the mix? Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Mark your calendars, September 27th, 10 to 12, that's a Saturday, at the Jennings Pavilion in Atherton. We in Atherton and Portola Valley are all hosting a seminar for seniors on housing choices. When you're at that point in your life, kids are gone, or one of your spouses is in trouble, you need to think about a change of residence.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate all your leadership on that. Any other communications? Okay, I'll just mention I attended CCAG as the alternate. Councilmember Wall was not available. I guess we haven't been very present there for a little while, but the issue at hand is something called SB 63, which is a proposal for a sales tax to help public transit. Might not surprise everybody that post-pandemic ridership is way down, and of course with hybrid remote work, the slope of recovery is very slow. I think it'll be 14 years until they're back to a place that they once were and still be heavily subsidized, as all public transit is. The measure did pass at CCAG, which means it is an endorsement to be placed on the ballot. It'll be a citizen-led ballot measure. I did vote in support of it. Woodside's the last folks to go, and it already passed with a supermajority. But frankly, I don't know how I necessarily feel about it because it's really a tax on San Mateo County for largely San Francisco and the East Bay. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays at the ballot. But the bigger issue I think that I'm just wrestling with is that I don't think we have the presence we should have in the county, and we don't prioritize it enough. So it's just something to think about as we go into the next year about how we want to really make that a real effort from the town. I think we can be a little insular sometimes. I know you're very good with the airport commission, but outside of that, I don't know if we're doing what we should be doing. The other thing, by the way, that I thought I just mentioned, it happened maybe 6 weeks ago. Earmark is the wrong term. I forget what they call it, but we did get a $250,000 earmark for the Mountain Home Bridge project, or at least it was. It's going to be put into the budget. It's not official, but it is an indication that at least we might be getting some federal funding. That's I had it in my notes from, it's been 8 weeks since we got together, so my memory might be wrong, but what's happening there, yes.
I think that's my understanding. It hasn't been finalized, but it's moving in that direction.
Okay. Oh, something. Okay, and I guess with that, almost hit it, but 9:20, we will adjourn. Thank you all. We'll see you in 2 weeks.